On the night of December 24th, 1945, the quiet town of Fayetteville, West Virginia, lay under a blanket of winter stillness. On the outskirts stood the two-story home of the Sodder family, filled with the warmth and laughter of 10 children. That night, the household seemed ordinary. Christmas lights glimmered, the smell of pine and baked goods lingered in the air, and the children played excitedly with their new gifts. Yet by morning, nothing remained but charred timbers, a blackened skeleton of a house, and an eerie emptiness that has never been explained. 5 of the children, supposed to be inside, were gone without a trace. No bodies, no bones, no belongings. The family had long been respected in the community. George and Jenny Sodder, immigrants of Italian descent, had 10 children and were considered hardworking and devoted. But the months leading up to Christmas had been marked by unsettling incidents. George, outspoken in his criticism of Mussolini and fascist sympathizers, had drawn the attention of those who disagreed with his views. Strangers appeared at the house, issuing cryptic warnings. One man told George that if he continued speaking out, his house would burn to the ground. Another insisted that the electrical wiring was dangerous, though an electrician had recently inspected it and confirmed it was safe. Despite these warnings, the family prepared for the holiday, unaware that the night itself would become a nightmare. On Christmas Eve, the children pleaded to stay up later, and 5 of them, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny Jr., and Betty, remained downstairs playing with their toys. George and Jenny went to bed on the second floor, as did their older children. The house, illuminated by flickering Christmas lights, was peaceful and seemingly secure. Around 1 a.m., the night was shattered by a sudden telephone call. A woman on the line asked about a man the Sodders did not know. Laughter and clinking sounds came faintly from the receiver. Jenny hung up, dismissing it as a wrong number, but it marked the beginning of a series of strange events. Soon after, she heard a dull thud from above, as if something heavy had struck the roof and rolled down the slope. A few minutes later, she woke to the smell of smoke. The fire had started in the staircase area leading to the second floor. It spread rapidly, engulfing the home and blocking access to the children upstairs. George awoke to the sound of shouting and the crackle of flames. The path to the second floor was impassable. Desperate, he leapt from a first-floor window and tried to retrieve a ladder that was always propped against the house, only to find it missing. Both family trucks, previously in perfect working condition, failed to start, denying him another potential escape route. Within 45 minutes, the fire consumed the home completely. Firefighters arriving at the scene found only smoldering ruins. Among the debris, no remains of the children were discovered. In a fire of such intensity, some skeletal remains would normally endure. Experts later confirmed that even in much hotter fires, complete destruction of bones in such a short time is highly improbable. From the beginning, the incident raised troubling questions. The missing ladder, the inoperative trucks, the cut telephone line, none of these details were consistent with a typical accidental fire. Witnesses began to come forward with further anomalies. One neighbor reported seeing a figure moving near the cut telephone cable shortly before the fire. Another claimed to see children leaving town in a car the morning after the blaze. Reports trickled in from other states. Children resembling the Sodders were spotted in hotels and roadside diners, accompanied by strangers who prevented them from speaking. The official investigation maintained that the children perished in the fire, but no evidence could substantiate this claim. The fire department's examination was rushed, and the conclusion of accidental death left unanswered questions. The family itself embarked on a lifelong search for answers, collecting witness testimonies, placing newspaper notices, and contacting private detectives. At the ruins of their home, they established a memorial wall with photos of the missing children and a single haunting question: where are they? In the days following the fire, George and Jenny Sodder confronted a reality no parent should ever face. The 5 missing children were gone, and yet no trace of their remains was ever found. Every investigation, every expert opinion only deepened the mystery. How could a fire so intense leave no evidence of life or death? The family could not accept the official explanation. They felt that someone or something had intervened, orchestrating the disappearance with unnerving precision. Strange occurrences around the house before the fire took on a more sinister significance. The ladder, crucial for escape, had been removed. The phone line had been deliberately severed, making it impossible to call for help. The trucks failed when they were needed most. Each seemingly minor detail now suggested forethought, planning, and malice. George and Jenny could not escape the growing realization that the fire might have been a cover, a deliberate act to conceal what really happened to their children. Witness reports began to emerge. A neighbor reported seeing a man lurking near the property, moving toward the telephone pole where the line had been cut. Several days later, a woman claimed she saw all 5 children in a car leaving town in the early hours after the fire, escorted by 2 unknown adults. The children, pale and silent, did not look frightened. Yet their presence so soon after the blaze contradicted the narrative of accidental death. The Sodders followed each lead with desperate hope. They traveled across state lines, tracking unconfirmed sightings in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida. One witness described seeing a boy resembling Louis Sodder at a roadside diner, seated next to two adults who refused any conversation. Another recounted glimpsing a young girl, reminiscent of Betty, in a small hotel lobby, shadowed by strangers who ushered her away from onlookers. Though inconsistent, these reports shared unsettling patterns. All 5 children appeared together under the supervision of unknown adults, and none were allowed to speak freely. Letters began to arrive, cryptic and unexplained. One, in particular, came without a return address in the early 1960s. Inside was a photograph of a man in his late 20s, bearing an uncanny resemblance to Louis Sodder. Written on the back were symbols and a short code, indecipherable yet compelling. The family clung to it as proof that at least one child might still be alive. Despite efforts by authorities and private investigators, the sender was never identified. Adding to the mystery were political undertones and the family's Italian heritage. George's outspoken criticism of Mussolini's regime had earned him both allies and enemies. Some theorized that the children had been abducted as retaliation, perhaps by individuals connected to fascist sympathizers or by criminal elements exploiting wartime chaos. Others suggested that the children might have been caught in a web of illegal adoption networks or clandestine child trafficking. No evidence ever substantiated these claims, but the possibility lingered, haunting the family and the community. The fire itself remained suspicious. Despite the intense blaze, firefighters reported no explosion or accelerant signs, yet the speed of destruction seemed impossible. The combination of removed escape routes, failed vehicles, severed communications, and rapid fire progression suggested more than mere coincidence. It was as if every obstacle had been designed to ensure the children could not escape or be found afterwards. As years passed, the Sodders never abandoned hope. George spent the last decades of his life traveling across the country, speaking with anyone who might have information. Jenny devoted herself to publicizing her children's story, posting photographs in newspapers, and reaching out to every agency that might help. Both believed the children had survived that night, scattered across the nation by unknown hands. Their belief fueled a tireless pursuit of answers, yet the trail remained frustratingly cold, punctuated only by unconfirmed sightings and letters like the one from Kentucky. Each lead, each account, added layers to an already complex narrative. Sightings contradicted one another. Names, locations, and timelines rarely aligned. Yet a haunting consistency persisted. The presence of the 5 missing Sodder children, the unseen adults who controlled their movements, and the impossibility of reconciling these events with the story of a house accidentally consumed by fire. The mystery had grown into a decades-long puzzle, blending tragedy, potential criminal intent, and inexplicable phenomena. The emotional toll on the Sodders was immense. The unresolved disappearance, the lack of closure, and the constant stream of conflicting reports created a life overshadowed by fear, uncertainty, and grief. The surviving children carried the burden of searching for their siblings, navigating a labyrinth of clues, rumors, and fading memories. The town of Fayetteville itself became entwined in the story, a witness to an event that defied explanation and challenged the limits of belief. By the 1960s, the case had transcended a local tragedy, becoming a symbol of enduring mystery. Scholars, journalists, and amateur investigators debated the events with equal parts fascination and horror. The combination of a destructive fire, missing children, and cryptic post-fire sightings ensured that the story of the Sodder family would be remembered not just as a horrific accident, but as one of America's most perplexing disappearances. The unresolved questions about the night of the fire, the identities of the strangers, and the ultimate fate of the children remained as sharp as ever, haunting anyone who dared to examine the case in detail. As the years passed, the Sodder family's search for answers became a lifelong endeavor. Each lead, each faint sighting seemed to promise revelation, only to dissolve into uncertainty. By the 1960s, George had spent countless miles crisscrossing the United States, speaking with witnesses, following tips, and examining any scrap of evidence that might indicate the fate of his missing children. Jenny devoted herself to preserving their memory, posting photographs, contacting newspapers, and appealing to authorities. The absence of closure became an unending shadow over their lives, a wound that never healed. The letters and photographs, particularly the one received from Kentucky, reinforced the possibility that at least one of the children survived, grown into adulthood yet still unreachable. The cryptic messages suggested someone was watching or controlling the lives of the missing. Who had taken the children? Why had no trace been left behind? Was it political retaliation, a criminal scheme, or something even darker and more elaborate? No answers ever emerged, leaving only speculation. The town of Fayetteville itself remained a silent witness to the inexplicable. Neighbors recounted the same uneasy details for decades. The removed ladder, the inoperative trucks, the cut telephone line, and the eerily rapid spread of the fire. Each anomaly suggested intent. Experts in fire behavior confirmed that even under the most intense conditions, the complete absence of remains was virtually impossible. The question lingered: how could a house burn so completely, leaving nothing of the children behind without human intervention? Over time, several theories emerged. Some proposed that organized crime had abducted the children in retaliation for George's outspoken political beliefs. Others suggested involvement in clandestine child adoption networks or even international trafficking schemes. A few speculated that the children had been kidnapped by unknown individuals with sinister motives, possibly for ransom or exploitation. While none of these theories could be proven, the combination of circumstantial evidence and unusual occurrences lent credence to the notion that the fire had been a deliberate cover-up. Each member of the Sodder family carried the burden differently. Surviving children grew up under the weight of unanswered questions. Friends and relatives whispered about sightings, coincidences, and unverified reports from across the country. Journalists and investigators attempted to piece together timelines, scrutinize letters, and track potential leads, but the case remained frustratingly fragmented. Sightings contradicted one another, timelines rarely aligned, and every potential breakthrough seemed to vanish before it could be confirmed. George Sodder died in 1969, having spent decades consumed by the search for his children. Jenny followed in 1989, never conceding to the possibility of their death. Their unwavering belief that the children had survived the fire shaped the family's legacy, transforming a local tragedy into one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. The fire, which destroyed the Sodder home in less than an hour, left more questions than answers. The missing ladder, the severed telephone line, and the inoperative vehicles pointed toward preparation and intent. Sightings and letters suggested the children may have been taken, yet no trace of them ever surfaced. The community remained haunted by a story that defied logic, challenging the boundaries of rational explanation. Today, the story of the Sodders serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of mystery. It is a tale of a family torn apart by forces unknown, a tragedy entwined with potential criminal intent, political tension, and inexplicable circumstances. It is remembered not merely for the horror of a Christmas fire, but for the unresolved disappearance that followed, leaving a void where answers should have been. The house no longer stands, but the memory of that night persists. Snow continues to fall quietly over the land where the Sodder home once stood, a silent witness to the children who vanished without a trace. Each passing year deepens the enigma, reminding all who hear the story that some mysteries resist resolution, some questions remain unanswered, and some lives are lost not in the fire, but in the shadows of uncertainty. The Sodder case remains an enduring enigma, one that intertwines tragedy, speculation, and the unknown. It is not merely a story of a fire or a family's loss. It is a testament to the limits of human understanding, the persistence of hope, and the haunting possibility that the missing children may still be out there somewhere, invisible yet very much alive. The story of the Sodder family remains one of the most haunting mysteries in American history, but the search for answers doesn't end here. If this story intrigued you, consider subscribing to the channel to explore more chilling and true accounts of disappearances, crimes, and unexplained events. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think really happened to the Sodder children, and which mysteries should we uncover next? Your ideas could inspire the next story we tell.